نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد يا ربي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. My respected elders, young brothers, at this very moment you are sitting in the Dars of Hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari. We are on the last Hadith from the chapter Kitabu Bad'il Wahi, which means the beginning of the revelation. And this chapter only contains 6 hadiths, and the last hadith is a very quite lengthy hadith. The hadith of Heraclius, the emperor of Rome, to whom our Prophet ﷺ wrote the letter of invitation to Islam. And Dihya Kalbi radiallahu ta'ala anhu was sent by Prophet ﷺ to deliver his letter to the emperor of Rome. And eventually the letter reached to him through the governor of Busra. Busra is a town in Syria. The Kalbi radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not directly go to the emperor. He went through the governor, and the governor, he delivered the letter to the Heraclius, and he wanted to investigate about this person who was claimed to be a prophet, and he wanted to know from someone who is from his town, his city, his country. So eventually he found out some Arabs are in our country, they are merchants, so they were called in. And Abu Sufyan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who later on became Muslim, at that time he was not Muslim, he was a severe enemy of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was called in, and he was asked some questions. Some questions were put forward to him about Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these questions were about 11 questions. And once he has answered all the questions, then the king, he commented on each answer which was given by Abu Sufyan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. In our last week's sitting, we reached to the question wherein he was asking, he said to Abu Sufyan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, وَسَأَلْتُكَ أَيَزِيدُونَ أَمْ يَنْقُصُونَ فَذَكَرْتَ أَنَّهُمْ يَزِيدُونَ وَكَذَلِكَ أَمْرُ الْإِيمَانِ حَتَّى يَتِمَ. He said, look, I've asked you during the session of questioning, I asked you, one of the questions was whether his followers were increasing or decreasing. And you mentioned that they are increasing. So then he said, وَكَذَلِكَ أَمْرُ الْإِيمَانِ حَتَّى يَتِمَ. He said the true Iman, the way of true Iman is that when someone becomes Muslim, when someone enters into the fold of Islam, then he does not look back. That Islam keeps on, the Iman keeps on growing till it is complete in all respects. So he said, this is the state of the Iman. That when someone becomes a Muslim, the believer, then their numbers will increase. More and more people will keep on entering into Islam. This is the reality. When the true Iman comes, then people will slowly, gradually they will keep on entering. So this was his comment, that this was his remark, that this is the sign of a true Iman. And then he said, وَسْأَلْتُكَ أَيَّرْتَدُّ أَحَدٌ سَخْطَةً لِدِينِهِ بعد أن يدخل فيه فذكرت الله وكذلك الإيمان حين تخالط بشاشته القلوب. He said, look, I asked you that has anybody who after embracing Islam became displeased with his religion, with Islam, and then he renounced his Islam, he just turned away from Islam. And you answered me, you told me, no one. No one renounced Islam. Whosoever became Muslim, he remained steadfast on his Iman and on his Islam. So he said, كذلك الإيمان حين تخالط بشاشته القلوب. In fact, this is the true sign of Iman. When Iman comes, then the sweetest Iman, when the sweetest Iman and the delights of the Iman enter the heart, then the believer becomes steadfast. This Iman, the sweetness of Iman, we sometimes when a person is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the pious people, they can, they taste the sweetness of Iman, which they cannot express with their tongues. So this emperor is saying, you are right, this is the sign. As you said that no one turned away from Islam. Whosoever became Muslim, he never turned away from Islam. He said this is the sign of a true Iman. When Iman comes, when somebody believes in Allah and in the day of Akhirat, then the sweetness of Iman enters in his heart, and this sweetness does not let him turn away from Islam. He said, وَسَأَلْتُكَ هَلْ يَغْدِرُ فَذَكَرْتَ اللَّهَ وَكَذَلِكَ الرُّسُلُ لَا تَغْدِرُ. He said, I asked you, has he ever betrayed? Has he ever broke his promise? And you said no, he never broke his promise. When he made a promise, he fulfilled the promise. He said, in fact, the prophets never break their promise. He said the prophets never break their promise. This is true. Why? Because he had the knowledge of the divine books. He had studied the books, and he knew that the prophets of Allah, the true prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, never betray anyone, nor they break the promises. وَسْأَلْتُكَ وَبِمَا يَأْمُرُكَ. He said, I asked you, what does he orders you to do? فَذَكَرْتَ أَنَّهُ يَأْمُرُكَ أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِشَيْءٍ وَيَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْ عِبَادَةِ الْأَوْثَانِ وَيَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالصِّدْقِ وَالْعَفَافِ. And you said, this man who is claiming to be a prophet, he orders people to worship only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he orders that no one should associate anything in the worship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he prohibits from the worship of idols, and he orders us to offer the praise, and he orders us to be truthful, and he orders us to be chaste. Now at the end, the emperor saying, after making his comments on each answer of Hazrat Abu Sufyan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, then he says, فَإِنْ كَانَ مَا تَقُولُ حَقًّا فَسَيَمْلِكُ مَوْضِعَ قَدَمَيَّ هَاتَيْنِ. He said, look, if whatever you have said, if you have told and spoke the truth, then remember, very soon, this man will occupy and conquer the place which is underneath my feet. At that very moment, he was sitting in Baitul Maqdis. This conversation and this dialogue took place in Baitul Maqdis. And he said to Abu Sufyan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, if you are true in what you are saying, then remember, I am predicting, very soon he will occupy this place. What on the basis, what did he say this on what basis he said this? He said this on the basis of his knowledge from the previous book. he had read in the previous books and in the description of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Muslim will conquer Syria. So he said, if you are telling the truth, then remember a time will come when the Muslims will occupy this place. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in the days of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Bayt al-Maqdis was conquered. And then he said, وَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُ خَارِجٌ لَمْ أَكُنْ أَظُنُّ أَنَّهُ مِنْكُمْ. Then he said, I used to think, and this was my belief, very final and last prophet is going to appear, is going to come. But what I used to think, I never thought that he would come from the Arabs. Why did he say this? Because after Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, all the prophets were from Bani Israel. They were from the descendants of Hadith Yaqub alayhi salatu salam, and Hadith Yaqub alayhi salatu salam was the grandson of Hadith Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam. Maulana Zakir rahmatullah alayhi, when he used to teach Bukhari Shareef rahmatullah alayhi, when he used to teach Bukhari Shareef, in his class, once he said, the emperor thought the last prophet will be born in the house of a Hafiz Tawrat and Injil. He thought that the last prophet will appear in the house of a one who will be Hafiz of Tawrat and Injil. Now, Ismail alayhi salatu salam, the Arabs are all from the descendants of Ismail alayhi salatu salam. And from the descendants of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu salam, only one prophet came, and that was Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, I knew very well that this prophet is going to come, but I never ever thought that he will come from the Arabs. I never thought, it never occurred in my mind that this last prophet will be from the Arabs. I was thinking, he thought he will be coming from Banu Israel, because after Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, all the prophets, they came from Banu Israel, from the descendants of Hadith. All the prophets were from Hadith Banu Israel. Isra means, this was the second name, another name of Hadith Yaqub alayhi salatu. Isra means abd, in their language, abd, slave, and il means ilah, Lord. So from there, the Hadith Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, Yaqub's, those his sons, and from there the progeny of Yaqub alayhi salatu salam spread, and all the prophets came from there. So on that basis, he read in the books, but that there will be a prophet, but he thought he will be from the Banu Israel. But when he received the letter, then he was amazed that I was thinking he will be from the Banu Israel. Never ever thought that he will be from the Arabs, but eventually he was from Arabs. Now, then after that, what does he say? He said, فَلَوْ أَنِّي أَعْلَمُ أَنِّي أَخْلُصُ إِلَيْهِ لَتَجَشَّمْتُ إِلِقَاءَهُ. He said, if I could make my way to this prophet, I would do so. I would travel to him. He said, if it was possible for me, I would go to this prophet. And then he says, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ إِنْدَهُ لَغَسَلْتُ قَدَمَيْهِ عَنْ قَدَمَيْهِ. If I were with this prophet, I would wash his feet. If I were with this prophet, I would be washing his feet. Look at this, this emperor, how much love he's showing for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet he has not seen him. Only he received the letter of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's saying that I wish I could go there, I could travel to him, and I could wash his feet. Now the question is, did he embrace Islam or not? Unfortunately, he did not embrace Islam. He feared that if I embrace Islam, my people will kill me. He feared, and in the hadith you will find out later on, when he asked the people to embrace Islam, then the people they became against him, and he feared for his life, and he thought, my life will go, or the kingdom will go. So he did not embrace Islam. But he showed full respect to the letter of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He kissed the letter of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, On the other hand, the Kisra, when the letter of Prophet ﷺ reached to him, he tore the letter of Prophet into pieces. And what happened when the Prophet found out that how he treated my letter? So he said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this person who tore my letter, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala break him into pieces. And then eventually I mentioned in my previous dars that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. But here the Christian emperor, he respected, although he did not embrace Islam, but he respected the letter of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the kingdom remained in his hand. And then what did he say? He said, can the letter be brought to me? The letter was sent to him. So he said, then he read the letter of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the ulama have extracted so many etiquettes of writing letters to people, how the letter should be read and what should be written in the beginning of the letter. Inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, inshallah we will carry on from there, from our next week's. That's may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our sitting and make it means of our forgiveness, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq that we follow the sunnahs of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We connect ourselves with Allah and with our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through sending salutation on him. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa mawlana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Rabbi ighfir warham wa anta khairur rahimin. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-afwa wal afiyata fi dinina wa dunyana wa ahlina wa malina. Allahumma inna nas'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribu ila hubbik. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.